13, 3, 2, Ed Harris.
And your winners, John Roca and
What 1994 film features Arnold Schwarzenegger as a pregnant man?
Junior. And your winner, advancing to the finals, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Baby Carrot Ellis!
All right, guys, welcome back to the newest episode of the Schmoedown Rundown. My name is Aaron. I will be your host for these proceedings today, where we will break down this past week's matchups in the Schmoedown and preview this week's as well. Joining me today is a first-time panelist on the show. He with the name more or less. His name is Kyle. What's up, man?
Hey, man, how's it going? So I was actually supposed to be on the first episode last week, which, by the way, before I go too far into this, first of all, congratulations on the show in general. It's really good.
Thank you, sir. And
on top of that, congratulations on, by episode 1, already making it to the Schmoeville podcast feed. That's
awesome.
Pretty impressive.
It's good stuff, man. I really, really appreciate that. And the way to my heart is definitely some sincere comments. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the credit that you give me for naming the show, I'm going to have to defer, let's say, 90% of that back to you, because you had actually come up with the name Schmoedown Throwdown, which I like that rhyme scheme a little bit better, but at the same time, it's like they're the ones who are doing the throwing down. We're just we're giving it a rundown.
I see what you did there. Yeah, that's a good point. So tell me, Kyle, if you will, how did you encounter the Schmoes? Like, where was your first interaction? How did you get to know Mark and Christian on this kind of level?
I would have to echo the sentiments that a lot of people dropped last week, which is that I saw them first on Movie Fights, and then they kept advertising, go check out Schmoes Know, and I did, and it was a little bit tough at first because someone actually made a really good point that Schmoes Know is a very niche show, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but the first time I actually watched them, it seemed like a lot of insider stuff, but then the more I started watching things like Collider, and then I actually checked out both Christian and Ellis, some stand-up videos that they did, and I'm like, these guys are really cool. So then when you get to know them and their personalities a little bit more, then you go back into Schmoes, and it all makes sense. It's all hilarious. It's all insightful. So it was late last year that I started getting into all this.
Right on, man. Awesome. Good stuff. And also joining us today, besides Kyle, we have a returning panelist. He is the stat man. It's Frank. What's up, buddy?
That is me. How's it going, guys? Great to be back here. And I just want to say thank you to everyone in Schmoeville for their support on this show. It's been really cool.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Christian and Schmoeville for giving us this opportunity to continue with this podcast. The feedback has been tremendous. I really appreciate that. Definitely a slight ego boost. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's cool when people reach out to you, like Ryan Snelling from the Schmoeville podcast reached out to me. Chris Skalicki, who does the questions for the Schmoedown, he actually made some comments on the video. Nice. Talking about some stuff. So I really appreciate people reaching out and supporting the podcast. It means a lot. So we here are going to bring you the best possible Schmoedown rundown that we can. So we got to get that out of the way first. Thank you for this opportunity.
Aaron's probably already put it on his resume.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did change my Twitter profile to new host of the newly minted Schmoedown.
Yes, nice.
Find us there. Hey, it's what I do. All right. So let's start off the show this week. I mean, we got some announcements via Christian on Twitter and Facebook about some new competitors that we're going to be seeing in the Schmoedown, and a new matchup was made. We have the list here. We got all kinds of competitors. You see the list, guys. Frank, let me start with you. Who do you see on this list that intrigues you, or somebody you want to see in Schmoedown action?
Well, the one that kind of pops out to me is Sasha Paul Ravers match. I'm interested to see how she's been away from the Schmoedown for a while since the team matches in last year. So I'm just really, she has a great vibe, a great charismatic, personality, and she's very, loud spoken in a manner, but it's very entertaining, and I always enjoy listening to what she has to say. Because she's very passionate, and I think her answers. I think she's probably very, very smart when it comes to movie trivia, because she sees a lot of movies, maybe even movies most people don't see, which could be to her benefit in something like this.
Absolutely. What about you, Kyle?
I'd have to go with Mark Andreyko, of course, because he's been on movie fights a bunch of times, and as most of us know anyway, he's not as successful as we'd like to see him, and you can see it in his face. It hurts him a little bit. So I like to see him move to this new format to give him a chance to really prove himself. I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Mark Andreyko actually has a match on the slate now. It was announced this week that he will be going against William Babiani, the film channel editor of Crave Online. Those two are going to get it on in a future Schmoedown, so that's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. As I look at this list, I'm kind of with you, Frank. I want to see what Sasha does, because I'm a person that anything Sasha's on, I'm glued to it. Because she is, like you said, she is so entertaining. She's funny. And I don't know, I think some people give her a hard time because they just don't get it. Like, they just don't get her. But I feel like I get her. So I'm very...
She's a lot of fun.
We get you. Oh, she's great. And so you should definitely be on the podcast. Just saying, wink, wink. And but yeah, Mark Andreyko as well. I echo you as well, Kyle. I think he's a great competitor, or he could be a great competitor in this vast knowledge of not just comic books, but things far beyond. So, but as I look at this list, I'm intrigued by Drew McWeeny, because we know he has a giant personality from Hit Fix. He's going to be an interesting person, and if they can lock it down with Matt Nost, that's a lot of knowledge going on. And I know that Matt Nost slipped up against Elliot Dewberry. He got some tough questions, but I think that would be a really good matchup. So I think
Matt Nost, I can't wait to see him in a singles match, because he got it was a rough go of it this first time, and he hasn't been on since, but he knows a lot. I mean, they go through top 10 lists of genres of movies. The guy knows his stuff, so I think, and that's probably the reason why Roka's as good as he is, and I'm sure Nost can be just as good. He just got a bad run of questions.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I completely agree. But, I mean, everything else on here, we got Cody Miller versus JT, which will be very interesting. The only matchup that I look at and kind of scratch my head a little bit is the proposed Sam Levine versus Finstock matchup, which just kind of has me thinking of that scene in Kingsman, like the church scene where everybody's getting slaughtered, and it's just gonna be a bunch of Finstocks getting slaughtered by Sam Levine. I feel. What do you guys think of that?
Clean sweep.
Clean sweep.
Not clean sweep.
Okay.
If not a clean sweep, at least a knockout.
Knockout. Right.
I don't like counting people out, because we've seen a lot of upsets this year. But
fair enough.
I can't.
Bob Finstock rolls sports movies. It's over.
Well, I don't think it's over. I think he has a chance then.
Okay.
I think if Levine doesn't, I'd be a little surprised if it wasn't a knockout with a guy like Levine. And then that's I'll rarely ever say knockouts, because knockouts are very rare in this format now. You got to be really bad to get knocked out, and Finstock, he hasn't gotten knocked out to his credit. So, but nevertheless, I think Levine, he could be the next to do. I think this would, if you're going to ask for a knockout, this would probably be your highest bet.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's move on from the proposed matches that were posted on Schmoeville, and let's get to an odd matchup that kind of just came out of nowhere, which could possibly be, guys, in one corner, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and in the other corner, Kevin Hart. Frank, I want to start with you again. What do you think of this possible marquee matchup?
I almost collectively lost my shit when I heard this on Twitter.
Right on.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, I know Christian's a hard worker and he can pull some strings, but this would be like the granddaddy of them all. I mean, The Rock, I mean, are you kidding me? Like one of like Christian's like favorite dudes ever, probably.
Oh, mine as well.
I mean, and well, a lot of people's, you know. I mean, he was one of the reasons I was interested in wrestling to begin with. Just a great entertainer. To have him, I just want to see his entrance.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, man.
I just can't even. And Kevin Hart, he's a funny dude. You know, and he talks great smack, and I know Rock and him have great banter, and that would just be amazing. And I don't know if this match ever were to happen. I don't know how Collider or the Schmoes could top it, outside of like Oscar winners, like. You know, I don't know. It's crazy.
Kyle, what do you think?
I was also like extremely surprised, but at the same time I wasn't, just because of the fact that we know how much The Rock likes to market his movies in really any way possible. So then when he sees this trivia contest really start to take off, and especially seeing that they got Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sam Witwer to show up, then that I feel like that probably opened the doors to a lot of these celebrities coming in, having fun, marketing whatever they're going to be doing. And again, because The Rock is so good at that, this is a perfect opportunity for him as well as for the Schmoes.
Absolutely. And I'm with you. I kind of just want to see the entrance. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. There it was, The Rock there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, like, what type of questions. Exactly. It doesn't matter, like, what type of questions they're answering, what comes up on the wheel. I just want to see The Rock and Kevin Hart in that Schmoedown platform just going at each other. Because, you know, the pre-fight interview is going to be hilarious. The match itself is going to be a scream. And the post-match interview is going to be out of this world. And I cannot wait. If anybody wants to make that happen, go tweet at The Rock. Go tweet at Kevin Hart. And get them to be in the Schmoedown. Like, just bombard them.
Retweet everything.
Bombard them. And that's at The Rock and at Kevin Hart for real. So definitely... go jump on it and get them in the Schmoedown.
Make it happen.
That would be fantastic. Absolutely. We have the power. Make it happen.
We can do it.
Got Freddie on there. Make it happen. So that's previews of coming attractions, possibly. A lot of great things going in the Schmoedown as it continues to grow and get bigger, and we're going to be right there on the cusp with it as it continues to grow. So with that being said, let's jump into our first recap match of the week, which was the team matchup. It was the top 10 show, the number 2 ranked team, going up against the number 1 team ranked Rotten Tomatoes. We had the team of Matt Nost and John Roca going up against Matt Atchity and Gray Drake. It was the first time we used the new team rules, which was, you know, proposed by Josh Macuga, excuse me, and Finstock on the Schmoes No Show, and they were ratified and approved. So go ahead and give me some thoughts, Kyle, on what you thought of the top 10 versus Rotten Tomatoes matchup this week.
Well, do we want to start with the matchup or with these new rules? Because with the new rule thing, I think the only thing that's really worth noting is this rule that if you do spin the wheel and land on the opponent's choice, that you are absolutely stuck with that. And I am 100% behind that. As soon as it happened in that Mega Powers and Patriots match, I thought that should have been kind of, you should have known that was coming.
Right.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I agree.
As for the match itself, okay. So before the match actually started, one of the first things I noticed was when Roca came out during that the pre-match smack talk, and he comes out looking like he's trying to go undercover at a skate park with that hat and the hoodie, and it's like it was strange.
No.
And then he comes out dressed in like military garb, which I understand because he was in the military, but it's like, what's with the giant hands? Where did that hat go? Where's this helmet? It was funny. It was a little bit bizarre.
I really enjoyed it personally. And he, like, Roca he's a guy that gets it as well. He gets it for these Schmoedowns. He's like, it's part spectacle.
Yeah,
so
it's
you kind
theatrical.
of have to. Oh my God. When he came out with the thing strapped to his back, I was like, what is this guy doing? All right, Frank, what did you think of the overall matchup?
The overall matchup, I was really excited for this matchup because I went back and looked at the previous matches. They each had 3 matches in that team tournament last year. They both ended up 2-1, lost in the semifinals. Rotten Tomatoes, as a team, they were scoring 70%, and on individual questions, Drake was answering 82%. Matt Atchity was answering at 64%. So Drake kind of, in a sense, carried them a little bit, at least in the individual questions they had to answer. And then for top 10, they were coming in collectively at 81.4%. Roca was answering 76.5%, and Nost was answering at 82%. So when I saw those numbers for Nost and Roca on an individual basis, and then you take into account the new second round with 6 questions, and they can collab on all of them, I thought they could make a killing in this kind of format, especially with their strengths as individuals. But then again, on Tomatoes, they come up with they're a pretty good team when they collab too. And so I was really interested to see this match, and they did not let us down.
It was a great matchup. And I have to apologize for it was my fault on the lack of Matt Atchity knowledge. So I was definitely briefed on it after the show. So I appreciate that, and that was my fault. So that's all on me. Aside from that, amazing competition in the second round. Like we said last week, that's kind of what can swing it. So you had top 10 who rolled Disney in round 2. Answered all the questions correct, ran the gamut, had to do 2 multiple choices, but got 10 points out of it. So that's a big round. Rotten Tomatoes rolls 80s movies. They get them all. 12 points in the whole round, ties it up. So then we had the final score was Top 10 defeated Rotten Tomatoes 23-21. Top 10 now the number 1 contenders for the Schmoedown Tag Team Championships, going up against the Schmoes. I don't want to get a full prediction, but Kyle, if you will, tell me what you see in the matchup between Top 10 and the Schmoes. Give me a little preview, if you will.
Oh man, this one's tough. Oh god, because part of me really wants to see Top 10 take the whole thing, but I think that's more of how much I enjoy Roca and his competition. But god, I think I'll have to go with the Schmoes. I think the Schmoes will pull it out ever so slightly, and I'm basing that off of very little. I actually wasn't expecting that question, so.
No, that's my fault.
No. That's a good question, and you just caught me with my pants down. But yeah, I think the Schmoes I think are confident enough in themselves to pull this out, but it's not going to be a blowout by any means.
Absolutely not. Frank, what about you?
This is the best matchup that they could ever ask for, especially with the form that Roca's in, the form that Ellis is in, the revenge attitude Harloff has, and Nost is kind of just like, well, I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't have any beef with anybody. I haven't lost anybody,
He's
or any
the
of you guys, or
Pippin.
beat any of you guys. Yeah. Man, especially Roca is just on a tear, and if this match comes after the fact that perhaps Roca is, the number 1 contender, if he beats Ellis in the final, and then you have this match, there's just so much going on here. It's going to be one for the ages. I'm actually going to make a prediction now that the top 10 and the Schmoes will go to sudden death.
Okay.
I can see that.
I think it's going to be that close, and I think if it doesn't, it'll be won or lost in that first round. Someone will miss 1 question or 2 questions. The other will miss just 1 less than the other, and that'll be the deciding factor.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be that close.
I tend to agree with both of you. I think it's going to be a matchup for the ages. It's sort of, Heart Foundation versus the Rockers, if you watch pro wrestling. It's just one of those marquee tag team matchups that I cannot wait to see. I'm not going to predict a winner yet because I don't know. I need more of a litmus test to kind of see. I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper before I make a prediction, but I think it definitely will be one for the ages. Absolutely a great matchup. Like you said, couldn't ask for a better matchup. Either Rotten Tomatoes or Top 10 would have made a great championship battle, in my opinion. But, two great teams going at it for the titles, and that's going to be a sight to see. One thing I want to touch on that I didn't put in the notes, sorry guys, was the post-match interview. There was an interview with Gray Drake and Matt Atchity, and the question was posed to Matt Atchity, when are we going to see you break off into singles competition? When do you want to, kind of pursue that? And he had a very interesting response, which was more or less, while I could do the individual thing, and he would, in my opinion, he would probably do very well. He kind of said no, he's going to stick with the team element because he thinks that he and Gray work better as a team than they do apart. So, Frank, what do you think of that kind of decision? Do you think that we'll see more competitors in the team style matchup stick to team as opposed to individual, or what do you think? How do you see that going?
Matt, I think he should dabble in the singles. He, in this past match especially, he really showed up for this match against Top 10. Gray Drake did not have a great match really at all. And individually, on individual questions, Atchity was 3 of 4, while Gray Drake was just 1 of 4. So he did all that he could to help them stay competitive with Top 10, and they were competitive. But Drake missed a crucial 3-point question that would have basically won them the game. But I think Matt. I think he pulled some questions out of there. I mean, some answers. I was just like, whoa, like the leprechaun question. Like, come on, man, that's pretty. That's nuts. When you can dig that deep, I think you show flashes of that you can make a name for yourself amongst the singles competition.
Absolutely. Kyle, what do you think?
When it comes to Atchity, who, by the way, came out looking like Magnum PI during that match,
Sure did. He sure did.
I kind of attribute that a little bit more to either A, he's just got a busy schedule or something like that, or B, maybe he's just more comfortable being in a team setting. Maybe he likes having someone to bounce off of, or just to look over to see a familiar face and kind of stay in that zone. So that's really my only theory about that part.
It's a good point. I mean, it's very possible that he just feels like it's a lot easier to bounce it off someone else as opposed to.
Yeah, maybe it's a more of a mental thing than anything else.
Absolutely, I tend to agree with you there. I think it's a very possible point. But Matt Atchity in singles competition, like I said, I think he could do quite well. So we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled to see what he does, from here on. But with that, let's move into the second recap of the week. It was the Friday match, the Ultimate Schmoedown semi-final match between Baby Carrots, Mark Ellis coming in at 3-1 versus the Wild Man, Josh Macuga at 5-3. Josh Macuga breaking the record for the most Schmoedown appearances. It was an interesting entrance between the two guys. Mark coming out to the Friends with the Friends Forever t-shirt, which was pretty awesome. And, Macuga coming out eating some baby carrots and spilling beer all over himself. So, overall, Frank, I'll start with you on this one. What did you think of Macuga versus Ellis? Did it live up to the hype? Was it everything you thought it would be?
If it wasn't for the entrances, I think this match would have been pretty average. Macuga really let me down because I thought he really had a shot if he could have a solid first round, and he squandered that horribly. He came in with 2 points in that first round, and it was set up perfectly for him to take advantage of Ellis, who only came in with 3 points, who is normally pretty strong in the first round. Coming into this match, first round questions, Mark Ellis was averaging about 4 points, so he was getting 4 questions right, so just a little bit below his average. Macuga should have taken advantage of that, and had he done that, I think you could have been looking at possibly another sudden death, but he could have won this match. He lost by 2 points. Does Ellis answer that 5-pointer correctly? Maybe, maybe not. We know what Macuga did throughout the whole third round, so he could have put more pressure on Ellis. I was just really kind of disappointed with Macuga. I thought the question where he should have taken a chance instead of going for the multiple question was on that what was it one?
Is it the James Woods voice?
The Dumbo question. he had an idea of what it was, and he opted to go to multiple choice. He should have took the shot because he was behind, and he was making up kind of a lot of ground because Ellis had a perfect go of it with the Arnie and Sly categories. So I think he had to take a couple of shots, but that's not what happened. And Ellis comes out the victor. He scored 76, almost 77% correct. Macuga came away with 54%, so barely answering half, a little over half. That's just not going to cut against a guy like Ellis.
It's not. Kyle, what do you think?
Oh, first of all, it sucked having to look at Macuga in his beer-stained shirt the whole match. That was a little annoying. But as for the match itself, it was kind of an average match. I don't really blame Macuga entirely for that. I think he got some pretty bad spins and some bad pulls. He's clearly not the Disney or the Classics guy. So, and then when you get Ellis who pulls Arnie and Sly, it's by the middle of the second round, and you can see it in Macuga's face. The match was over.
Yeah.
So
Harloff said as much.
And to be fair, Macuga did take it as a little bit further than I thought he would by nailing his 3 and 5 point questions in the third round, but it's almost like it didn't matter at that point.
Yeah, I think Ellis is a guy that comes into these matches, to me anyway, and he just has he's confident, but he sort of showboats, but not really. It's almost like a quiet confidence. Ellis just kind of rolls in there and he's like, Junior, just nailing all these Arnie and Sly questions. Last action hero, just no sweat, and it's just a quiet, confident swagger.
It's like he tells a joke in between the questions, and then as soon as the question starts, he gets stone faced. He's got this laser focus about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's great, and I think that's going to help him in the next matchup with Riley or Roca, whoever it may be. We don't know at this point, but I think that when you come in that confident and your stuff that well, it's kind of easy to look. I think some people I've seen even say oh, he just came in a little bit cocky. I don't think it's cockiness as much as it is, I'm here for business. I'm coming in. I'm going to get it done, and I'll tell some yucks along the way. But I'm gonna get it done. So, I mean, let's look at it here. The Disney role for Macuga in the second round, as we've said, seems to be the second round is the make or break. Macuga rolls Disney, goes 3 for 4. Ellis stole 1 point from him, and then Ellis gets Arnie and Sly. We said runs the table. So it just goes to show you that second round is absolutely crucial.
Yes.
So in the end, it was Ellis defeating Macuga 16-14 to advance to the finals. It's either Mark Riley or John Roca. It'd be weird if he fought himself, but so it was Macuga to 5-4, Ellis to 4-1. And then once again, after the match, if you're not watching these post-match interviews, you really need to stick around for them, especially after last week with Sam Witwer. And then this week, we had a challenge thrown down to Macuga from one Christian Harloff to go on the revenge tour. He wants a rematch, which Josh Macuga accepted. Kyle, how much do you want to see Josh Macuga versus Christian Harloff 2?
I would like to see Christian get back into the ring, because there was that one time when he was more or less threatening to retire. So then when he announced this revenge, I'm like, yes, this is good, especially because he's been doing so much work on this Schmoedown as a whole. He deserves a chance to fight. He deserves these wins, because especially against the Roca match, 19 points is nothing to laugh about. He's a really good competitor and deserves these matches.
Absolutely. Frank?
I didn't know I wanted this match as much as I wanted until I heard it was actually going to happen. It was accepted. I'm really excited for this because I'm excited for Harloff to get an easy win. I'll put it just like that. Because he mentioned the Blue Fairy thing, and that is one of the most memorable things that has happened. Aside from that, Macuga, he pulled out some crazy guesses in that match, especially for the win, which was just amazing. But Harloff, he's going to take it, and Macuga, he's going to get another L in his column. So, because here's the thing. Well, because here's the thing, Harloff, man, he's super serious about this, and I know Macuga is as well, but Harloff takes it to another level, and just as high as Roken. I think that's why you got the Roken-Harloff match as good as it was. Macuga, he is a good competitor, and sometimes he does get a bad string of questions, but even when he doesn't, he still doesn't take advantage of other opponents' mishaps like other great competitors, and so that's the advantage. And Harloff is a great person when it comes to stealing. So if Macuga misses one or two questions in that second round, you can be sure Harloff's going to pick them up. I can see that happening, and it's not going to be close. I think the margin in which Macuga lost to Ellis, the margin with Harloff and Macuga will be much greater.
Okay, fair enough. I think it'll be
interesting nonetheless. It'll be great theatrics. I'm all for it. But, it sucks that I'm kind of like down on Macuga, but it's like, it's just the way I see it.
Oh, no love for Macuga here. Oh, man. Poor guy. All right, well, before we get to the previews of this week's upcoming matchups, I want to take a moment. I want to go back in time, if you will. Doodly-doo, Wayne's World style.
Go back in time.
Back in time to a great moment in Schmoedown history.
Marty.
Animated.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Which Disney film features the blue fairy granting a wish?
Well, Sleeping Beauty. There is a blue fairy, so there absolutely is a blue fairy giving a wish.
I don't know
to
if there's
no
a
one.
blue fairy
But she's
or
not known as the
but-
blue fairy.
But if you want Cinderella is Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. So there's two.
The answer was Pinocchio.
The blue fairy.
Yeah.
But that's a loaded question. I'm going to call that controversy.
Controversy.
Well, we're off to a rocking start here.
Okay.
Controversy.
Here. If you want to try to start some controversy right now with the line of questions,
fairy.
then you can go ahead. But let it be known, you lost by 2 points tonight. That blue fairy question was only worth 1. And
However, it would have been a tie.
and the other fairies are known by different names. The only name that the blue fairy is known as in Pinocchio is the blue fairy, hence her moniker, the blue fairy, not the blue one, which is what everybody calls the other fairies. There's a blue one, there's the green
You're
one.
saying I have a chance to retort, but you're
I'm just making a point. And you're sitting there, you're stewing a little bit because you lost. Look, I was sitting where you were. Okay,
Right.
and I was wearing a very tight Devil's outfit. You're at least dressed comfortably.
And I jumped the gun. I don't want to take anything from Macuga. He won fair and square. But I jumped the gun by saying Red Dawn. I should have.
It was a miss.
Heat.
It was a miss. I should have said Red Heat. But the blue fairy, make a meme of it, can suck my balls. I hate the blue fairy.
Okay.
Guys, you heard it from the clip. Oddly enough, it wasn't planned. We're talking about the blue fairy incident between Josh Macuga versus Christian Harloff 1. Guys, I gotta tell you, like, going back and watching this made my side hurt so bad. Just the interaction, not even so much as Harloff and Macuga in the interaction, but Harloff and Ellis going back and forth, talking about the difference between the blue fairy in Cinderella and the blue fairy in Pinocchio. Like, I thought, or not Cinderella, but Sleeping Beauty. I thought I was going to lose my mind. And poor Alicia Malone,
Yeah.
she's sitting there apologizing. Like, did I read it wrong? She poor Alicia, man. It is a great moment in the history of the Schmoedown. Frank, I'm going to start with you. What did you think? How would you encapsulate the blue fairy incident?
I mean, it is one of the most defining moments in Harloff's Schmoedown history, as well as Macuga's. Just that match in general as well. But the blue fairy thing, I mean, Harloff was steamed from, and that was the very first question he got. He was steamed from the get-go, and he followed up on another question, the second question, the Red Dawn, Red Heat. He mixed that up, and then he only got one question right for the rest of that round, which was the last question. And it just goes to show you, he was only down by 2, so Macuga was only up 3-1, which is why my prediction for this rematch is the way it is. However, and then for the fact that Ellis and Harloff were talking about this question throughout the entire rest of the match, it was just amazing to me. I forgot that even happened, that it was just, and then Ellis was like, hold on a second, guys. Okay, listen. This is the deal with the blue fairy, Pinocchio, and all this and that, and like laid out his argument to Harloff, and Harloff was like, well, you just, what am I supposed to say to that, and it's just, and then you're right, Alicia Malone was just like, that's wrong, it says Pinocchio here, and he's like, also when Harloff said the question, and he's like, "Oh well, it's got to be Sleeping Beauty, or Cinderella, whatever." Like he wasn't even sure in his answer. He thought it was like a trick. I think he might have felt it was like a trick question in a sense, but even he himself was trying to convince them that the answer that he was giving them, he felt like it was going to be wrong, but he was trying to convince them that it was right and that their research on the question was wrong. And it's an amazing thing to watch because you don't really get to see Ellis and Harloff go at it like that with one another, and that was genuine stuff going on there. That was amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was interesting
Kyle,
that he never gave a definitive answer, and I understand why, because I actually, until this morning, I had never seen it before since I'm still relatively new to all this stuff. And right off the bat, I thought it was funny when Christian called the fairy godmother Bippity Boppity Boo. I love that joke. It was really funny. He wasn't even joking. He was entirely serious about saying it like that. And I have my opinion on that, and I hate to go against the creator, but I ever so slightly lean towards, yeah, he did technically get it wrong, but I understand his argument because there's a lot of thinking that has to go into that question. There's a lot of different interpretations that could be done about it, but like it was fun to watch, but it was also tough to watch because it's like at any moment this could get really serious and this whole thing could collapse over like a goofy question.
It did seem like it was going to get heated there for a second, especially when Alicia accidentally spilled the water on the table, and Macuga's over there thinking that everybody's going to get electrocuted on set, and it's just like it was such a weird moment, and then for that the Blue Fairy thing to happen right after just made it like cemented it as all-time classic. And then even when later on in the show when Mark Riley's trying to give the giveaways or tell people about the giveaways they'd won, like Christian's even still Blue Fairy,
Yeah.
and like he just randomly says like Blue Fairy, and then Mark Riley's like Blue Fairy.
The quote was,
like he's just
I believe the
rolling
quote was, "The Blue Fairy can suck my balls." I think that was the
That
quote
thing.
from Harloff. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just another amazing moment. Guys, if you haven't checked out that episode of Macuga versus Harloff 1, go to the SK YouTube channel, Schmoedown, and check it out there. It is worth your time for sure. So definitely check it out. So that was a great moment in Schmoedown history. Now we're going to move on to what's upcoming this week on the plate. We've got two big matchups this week. First off is the Team League match between Team Heroes, which is Robert Meyer Burnett and John Schnepp, versus the Wolves of Steel, which sounds like a really awesome 80s rock band, Clark Wolf and Mark Riley. Currently, as I saw on Twitter the other day, the Wolves of Steel are at 67% to win this contest. Kyle, I want to start with you. Give me an idea of where you're leaning towards in Wolves of Steel versus Team Heroes.
I have a team that I want to win, and then there's a team that I think is going to win. I want Team Heroes to win, mostly because I really like both John Schnepp and Robert Meyer Burnett. I watch them every week on Heroes. They're really entertaining, and then just Schnepp as a person and as a director, he's got a ton of my respect for who he is. But then if you go back and watch some of his matches, he does not have very good recollection. And it's a little bit disappointing watching him lose to Finstock. And then you also got to take into consideration that, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but then this is allegedly Robert Meyer Burnett's first Schmoedown. So I kind of wonder if maybe the lights are going to hit him, or if maybe he's going to underestimate how tough the questions are going to be. He's too much of a wild card at the moment. And then just you got champions in both Mark Riley and Clark Wolf, so it's hard to bet against them. So that's if I were a betting man, I'd put my money in that direction.
Okay, I gotcha. Frank, what do you think? How do you see it?
Right now, I think Wolves of Steel should be a little offended that they're only at 67% to win this, to tell you the truth. Schnepp and Meyer Burnett, great guys, love them, but, I mean, Schnepp hasn't shown exactly fortitude to... I mean, he lost to Finstock.
Kind of unforgivable.
You're part of that exclusive group with Tiffany Smith. Like, the fact that now that since you were the second to lose to Finstock, now you in fact made the group. You know, I mean, it's look at Wolves of Steel, Riley and Clark Wolf. I mean, you know, God help them if they get horror because it's going to be just absolute demolition style. They're going to roll through that. On an individual basis, we have a good history of Riley and Wolf, and you know, I mean, talking about two of the top, you know, 3 players in this league, 4 players in this league, going up against John Schnepp, who's 1-1, who's answering 50% in the Schmoedown, so not too great of a numbers to give someone out there an optimistic chance of them winning, in my opinion. But you never know. Robert Meyer Burnett might be, you know, a ringer of sorts and just, you know, carries the team, and maybe Wolf is still, you know, rattled by her recent loss, and she follows up, doesn't help Riley as much as we thought she would, and it's really a Burnett versus Riley kind of Schmoedown in a sense. But that's not going to happen. I don't think so. No way. I mean, that second round is almost unfair to everybody else now with a team like Wolves of Steel. Almost unfair. I mean, we saw what Rotten Tomatoes did. We've seen what Top 10 has done. There's no reason to believe that Wolves of Steel can't match that or do better. You know, I mean, I don't know how you do better than Perfect Round, but you know, they could. It's gonna be brutal. I think it's gonna be brutal, but it's gonna be amazing to watch.
See, I feel like I'm in the minority here. I feel like this match is more than meets the eye. It's, you know, like we've said many times, and I'll say it again on the show, the second round, the wheel round, is so crucial. Let's just think here. We're throwing out hypotheticals here. What if Robert Meyer Burnett and John Schnepp roll comics or roll comic book movies?
That's the only pair they have. Yeah,
that's going to be a clean sweep. However, what else though? What if Robert Meyer Burnett or Schnepp or what if they roll Star Trek? Now we know that Robert Meyer Burnett is a Star Trek encyclopedia, no denying it. And I don't know I know that Riley is a Star Trek fan. I'm not sure about Clark, but I mean, these are categories where these guys could run the table. And if somehow, some way, Clark or Riley were to get them, I'm not saying this necessarily about the comic book movies because Riley's very knowledgeable, and as is Clark, but I mean, if there's a steal opportunity in there, you got to think that Team Heroes is going to be jumping all over it. So I think that this match is more than meets the eye. I'm very interested to see Robert Meyer Burnett and how he performs. Him and Shep as a team, you know, they've known each other for a long time. I don't know how that translates to Schmoedown trivia, but I mean, it remains to be seen. I think it's going to be tighter than we think. But I am still with your thought process of, you know, Wolves of Steel is one of those elite teams. They're on the level of top 10 Rotten Tomatoes. I think the Patriots we can go ahead and put as an elite team. I think they're going to be amazing. So it kind of remains to be seen, you know, how Team Heroes is going to perform. But I do see your thought process there. With that being said, I'll kick off the predictions. I'm going to take Wolves of Steel in this, but I'm not going to take them by much. So I'm on the Wolves of Steel bandwagon. Frank, I want to kick it back to you. Give me a prediction of who you think is going to win this matchup.
Wolves of Steel, 110%.
Okay.
I think it'll actually be a knockout. I think it'll be a knockout.
Wow.
I think it'll be a knockout.
Okay.
Because I think the first round on an individual basis, because I don't have anything to go off for Burnett, but I think Schnepp is not going to hold up his end of the bargain in that first round, and it's going to cost them in the second round. Wolves of Steel will run the table, and then Heroes will get their shot, and they'll miss a question, maybe 2 questions, and out of those 2 questions, Wolves of Steel will steal, and that's gonna be the deciding factor.
All right, Kyle.
I'm also going to go Wolves of Steel. For anyone that still watches Collider Heroes, if you stayed till the end when they're doing all their personal plugs and everything, and they're just about to close out the show when Robert Meyer Burnett turns to Schnepp and goes, "Hey, there's something else we got to advertise. We got this Ultimate Schmoedown coming up, the team match." And then Schnepp turns to the camera and says, "Yeah, me and Robert are going up against Wolves of Steel, Riley, and Clark Wolf." And normally Schnepp's the kind of person that he would turn to the camera and he would have this big grin on his face. He'd be cracking jokes against the other team, but he's got this dead look in his eyes, like he has zero confidence in his face. So I think going to this match, I don't think it's going to be quite a knockout, but I think going into the third round, it's going to be one of those clear scores where Heroes has to knock out all their questions and Wolves of Steel only have to answer one or two to solidify their win.
All right, fair enough. So it's a clean sweep as far as we're concerned. We got three Wolves of Steel victors over here to none for Team Heroes, but we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be tight, so remains to be seen. I think it'll be a great match. And let's move on to the second preview this week, which was the Ultimate Schmoedown semifinal. It is Mark Riley versus John Roca. We talked about it last week because, unfortunately we weren't aware of the schedule of events, which once again is my mistake that I will fully take ownership of. So I just want to briefly touch on it because we hit it in length last week. Currently on the Twitter poll, guys, Mark Riley getting a, wait for it, 51% of the vote. So it's 51-49. Schmoeville is almost split down the middle between Riley and Roca. I don't want to get too far into it, like I said, but Kyle, I want to lead with you because you weren't on the show last week. Riley versus Roca, Superman versus Zod, the Outlaw versus the Man in Black. Who do you have in this matchup?
I'm going to give the slight edge to Roca. I think he's got this insane amount of momentum to him with his both in singles and the team matches. We've seen him perform almost flawlessly out there. And then also, personally, I want him to win because the way he's built himself up after all this Bespin nonsense. And we saw it again in the team match where Atchity delivers a message from Mans, hey, Bespin, it's not funny anymore. It's stupid. So just...
Bespin has jumped the shark.
He's become kind of a hero to the rest of us who've had something like that hang over our head, and he's knocked out all the people that have come up against him. And here's my impersonation of Frankie Statman over here. It's of all the winners that have come up in this Ultimate Schmoedown, I think Mark Riley has scored the least points in a win, and he cut his match against Dewberry was way closer than it ever had any right to be. So I kind of feel like Riley comes off this Dan Murrow match. He gets defeated. Maybe he's feeling defeated. He goes against Dewberry. He scrapes a win out of there. I think he's got a great potential, but I think he's got his work cut out for him in this match.
Okay, so you are on Team John Roca for this week. Frank, what you got, man?
Yeah, I'm definitely Roca. The 51% for Riley makes sense to me. Good job, Twitter. Man, Roca is just on this roll. I mean, it's a dominant run he's been on. Even if you go back into his Rotten Tomatoes individual question runs, he got all of his questions right. So I think, between the 4 questions he got right there and what he did in his previous Ultimate Schmoedown match, I think he's 12 for 12 and 16 out of 17 questions right now, if you want to count all those together, which is just, I think he's on unprecedented territory on the kind of run he's on. But that's not to say Riley can come back. I've always never been hugely sold on Riley's dominance, and it's just because his first couple matches in the first Ultimate Schmoedown, pretty easy matches, really easy for him to get through. And he had to put up a fight against, Macuga and JTE. But had it been Harloff versus Riley in the Ultimate Schmoedown final, it's possible Harloff could have won that one. And even though Macuga did push Riley to the limit, but Macuga was running on luck as much as skill. And then he has that rematch against JTE, and he knocks him out just because JTE just completely crapped the bed on that one. And then he goes up against a legitimate contender in Murrow, and he loses to Murrow. And then, so, to me, Murrow has really been his only true test against an elite competitor, and he lost. And now he's going to have his second match against a true competitor in Roca, and it's going to be a close one, and I don't know if Riley can pull out a close victory like Roca has done pretty much his entire career. I mean, everything he's done, everything has always been close. And once you do that enough, you get more comfortable with it. And he's learning how to win like that, and he's pulling it out. And Riley's had a lot of matches, but I think Roca has been tested more, and that's why I'm going to go Roca.
Okay, so we're two Roca, none Riley, and guys, I mean, if you listen to the show last week, it's not changing. I'm still sticking with John Roca. I agree with everything everyone said so far. I honestly don't really have anything to add. John Roca's on a great run. I don't see it stopping here. Marley, great competitor. John Roca he's a madman. He's like the Hulk on a rampage. Like, he's just coming through, and he's taking out everybody along the way. And speaking of a certain outlaw, John Roca, I hear rumblings that John Roca wants to be a guest on this show.
Do it,
guys.
yeah.
I've heard this. I've heard this around, and I need to tell, if John Roca, if you're listening, I need you to scoot a little closer to the speaker here. You got to answer those Facebook DMs, man. So do me a favor.
Yeah, don't be scared. Don't be
Everyone
scared.
who's out there tweeting The Rock and Kevin Hart to go on the Schmoedown, tweet at Roca in the meantime and tell him to come on this show.
There you
Yeah, if everybody can shoot John Roca a tweet and say, hey, man, why don't you answer those Facebook DMs? Or, just hit me up on Twitter at ATTitanium. You can find me there, and we can have John Roca on the show. And I would love to have him on. I would love to have a minute or two with the outlaw himself. So with that being said, I actually want to pose, Schmoeville, I know we're asking you a lot. This is an interactive show. We want to be as interactive with Schmoeville as possible. So anybody that you actually want to see on the show, whether it be a John Roca, a Mark Riley, a Josh Macuga, an Ellis, anybody you want that competes in these Schmoedown competitions that you want to see or hear on this show because you can't see us, go ahead and tweet at them. Tell them, hey, you got to be on the Schmoedown Rundown. We would love to have them on here, and I would love to do like a pre-match interview or somebody that's just come off a loss and what they've got going next. So definitely, if you want to take the time, we would sincerely appreciate it. I will tweet at them all the time and see, who wants to come on this show. So that being said, all that business out of the way, got one more piece of news here before we let you go. If you're going to be in the LA area on October 28th through the 30th at Stan Lee's Kamikaze, you have to show up and check out a live Schmoedown. Live and in person at Kamikaze. You could possibly get your chance to go up against one of the Schmoes in a Schmoedown. How amazing does that sound? So be sure to get your tickets to Stan Lee's Kamikaze October 28th through 30th at the LA Convention Center for your chance to go up against, I don't know, you could go up against JTE, you could go up against Mark Riley, who knows? Test your knowledge against the Schmoes itself. I know me personally, I'm challenging John Roca. So I don't know about you, Frank. I don't know who you would challenge. If you had the chance, if you're there in LA, who are you challenging?
I would challenge JTE.
Okay. The people.
I would, because he's I don't know if he's the people's champ anymore. I used to be on a JTE bandwagon, and then he let me down. He let me down hard, and so I've had to cast him aside, and that's I pulled up to Roca's train now, and he's proven to be a much better competitor than JTE. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There you go. All right, Kyle, who would you go up against if you had the chance to choose one person from the Schmo universe, if you will, to go up against?
Give me Riley. Give me the former
Mark
champ.
Riley. Wow. Okay.
I don't know what it is. It's something about I want to. He's the one that popped first into my head when you asked me that question.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we can make that happen. We can do that over Skype, right, Christian? Wink, wink. So, yeah, guys, definitely check it out. Be there October 28th through the 30th for your chance to go up against the Schmo. That's going to be it for this show. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about during the show, you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at ATTitanium on Twitter. Or you can hit up the email address we have for this. It is schmoedownrundown@gmail.com. I'm going to kick it over to Kyle. Kyle, where can people find you if they want to find you?
I'm occasionally on Twitter at thebrow88, and you can also find my YouTube channel, 165 Entertainment. That's all numbers 165. It's kind of a general entertainment channel, some Let's Plays, some movie discussions, some commentary tracks, little things like that.
There you go. How about you, Frank?
You can find me on Twitter at FrankieJ29, and of course in Schmoeville, posting up some stats. So that's where you can find me.
All right, guys. Sounds great. And don't forget to check out the Team movie trivia Schmoedown match between Team Heroes and the Wolves of Steel this Tuesday. And don't forget, of course, you cannot forget the last semifinal match between Mark Riley and John Roca that will come out this Friday. Don't forget to subscribe to the Schmoes Know YouTube channel and Collider Video so you can keep up with all this amazing content. I'm Aaron. That's Kyle. That's Frank. We'll see you next time.